Hey, what up, y'all? My battery's on red, and if you my battery's on red, so I'm not finna hold y'all at all. I'm about to get right into this video. About to check out 9 most bizarre unsolved mysteries. I wanted to react this because, you feel me? Who don't like reacting to mysteries? You feel me? Like, let's all watch mysteries. Let's go.
Hi, it's Katrina. From 5 missing children to a strange global epidemic, here are 9 of the most bizarre mysteries that still haven't been solved. Number 9. The Sodder Children. On what seemed like a normal Christmas Eve in 1945 in Fayetteville, West Virginia, couple George and Jenny Sodder and their 9 kids went to bed, eager for Christmas morning. A fire broke out around 1 o'clock a.m., and George, Jenny, and 4 of the kids escaped. George tried saving the other 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, by breaking a window, but he couldn't see inside the smoky house. They vanished seemingly into thin air and were never seen or heard from again. Due to communication issues, the fire department did not reach the scene until 8 in the morning, by which point the house was completely destroyed. The traces of the 5 missing kids' remains were never found, and they were presumed dead, based on the theory that the blaze completely cremated their remains. Still, with no signs of remains whatsoever, George and Jenny began to wonder if their children had somehow escaped the fire, and if so, what had happened to them. The fire itself, which was attributed to faulty wiring, also raised questions, since the wiring had recently been installed and inspected, and was in perfect working order as far as the couple knew. In the months leading up to the fire, numerous strange people had appeared at and near the Sodders' home, including an angry insurance salesman who said that the house was going to go up in smoke, and a stranger looking for work who pointed at the boxes containing the wiring and said that they were going to catch fire someday. After the tragic incident, Jenny began her own investigation and learned that it was highly unlikely that the fire had burned her children's bodies to the point of leaving no bones behind. Even more curiously, people claimed to see the missing children after the fire, including a waitress who served them breakfast before they rode off in a car with Florida license plates. Witnesses said that the kids were accompanied by adult men who would not let the children interact with anyone while out in public. The Sodders spent years trying to convince the authorities to reopen the case, believing that their children had been kidnapped, but they adamantly refused, leaving the couple on their own to investigate leads. Time and time again, their search turned up fruitless. George and Jenny Sodder died without ever learning what happened to their 5 vanished children, but with the certainty that they did not die in the Christmas Eve house fire. Number 8. Cryptic Cop Killer. On September 7, 1959, Officer Douglas Eugene Cantrell of the Davis, California Police Department was killed in the line of duty near a railroad track in a residential part of town. A young couple discovered his slain body in his patrol car, which was still running with its lights on. Officer Cantrell was sitting in the front seat with his legs hanging out the open door, a single bullet through the heart, and his .38 caliber pistol on the ground. After joining the department just a month earlier, the 23-year-old patrolman became the first and only Davis Police Department officer ever killed on the job, a distinction he holds to this day. Both suicide and accidental causes were ruled out, but investigators failed to procure any witness accounts of the incident or any suspicious activity in the area. Nobody was ever charged in Officer Cantrell's death, despite several suspects being questioned and given polygraphs. One individual who spoke with detectives changed the story of his whereabouts on the night of the murder, making him look even more suspicious, but there was no evidence linking him to the crime. Meanwhile, a Louisiana prisoner named Emmett Spencer attempted to implicate his girlfriend, Mary Catherine Hampton, in Officer Cantrell's murder, but he was probably lying, as evidence showed that Hampton was in Florida when the killing occurred. The cold case was still open on its 53rd anniversary in 2012, when Rich Rifkin covered it for the Davis Enterprise and was denied access to the case file. Unfortunately, the murder happened so long ago that anyone with information about the culprit, including the killer themselves, will likely take their secrets to the grave, if they haven't already. Number 7. Dyatlov Pass Incident. A group of 10 young but experienced cross-country skiers trekked into the Ural Mountains near Yekaterinburg, Russia for what was supposed to be a 3-week trip to Mount Ortorton. What happened to them remains one of the greatest mysteries of all time. They set up camp in a mountain pass, and the leader of the expedition said that he'd telegram his sports club when they returned. Weeks and weeks passed and no sign, so a search party was sent out to find them. They came across a very disturbing scene. What exactly had happened, no one knows, but the rescuers found the tent slashed from the inside, as if the travelers had tried escaping suddenly, with their seemingly abandoned dinner nearby. Outside the tent were a series of footprints made by 8 or 9 people who were either barefoot, in socks, or wearing one shoe. The footprints led to a nearby tree where they found the remains of 2 people, stripped of their clothes and wearing nothing but underwear. Another 3 were spotted who seemed to have died from the cold, but there were no other injuries. 2 months later, 4 more appeared in a ravine with significant injuries and signs of attack. Some had been mutilated or had parts missing. Some also had broken ribs, an oddly twisted neck, and a fractured skull. The only survivor was Yura Yudin, an economics scholar who experienced back pain early on in the trip and turned around in the nick of time. The official causes of death were declared to be hypothermia and frostbite. But what had really happened to the group? It was definitely not an animal attack or an avalanche that would take off their clothes and cause all of these bizarre injuries. People demanded answers regarding the suspicious deaths, but nobody was ever implicated, including the suspected military and the local Mansi tribe. In early 2019, the Russian government reopened its investigation into the incident, announcing plans to fly experts to the site where the bodies were discovered for forensic tests, in an attempt to determine exactly what happened. Theories range from weapons testing carried out by the military to an encounter with an angry Yeti, or, for whatever reason, the group turned against each other like some type of Hunger Games. It's very hard to say for sure until perhaps some documents become declassified. What are your theories about this incident?
Bro, it's so weird because we can logically think of what we know happened or what we think happened, right? But it ain't no evidence.
21-year-old nursing student Laura Murray packed up her dorm room belongings, withdrew cash from an ATM, and hit the road. She emailed one of her professors explaining that there was a death in the family, although there wasn't, and that she would be gone for a week. Her 1996 Saturn was found crashed into a tree in Woodsville, New Hampshire. A police officer at the scene wrote that evidence at the scene indicated that the vehicle had been eastbound and had run off the roadway, struck some trees, spun around, and come to rest facing the wrong way in the eastbound lane. Although it was no mystery that Mara's car had crashed, she was nowhere to be found. It was cold outside, and the ground was covered in snow. A local bus driver who witnessed the crash told police that the young lady behind the wheel came out and told him not to report it, that she already had. Not true. An empty wine box in the car and red stains indicated that alcohol played a role in the accident. Perhaps she panicked? The only other clues were a set of MapQuest directions to an apartment complex in Burlington, Vermont, along with a typed letter to her boyfriend about their relationship problems, which she left behind in her dorm room. No trace of Maura was found any further than 100 feet from the crash, leaving authorities with 3 primary theories. She got a ride, was abducted, or kept walking into the woods and somehow her scent was lost in the snow. Investigative journalist James Renner put forth the idea that Maura had someone pick her up and take her to Canada, where she started a new life. Renner believes that perhaps she was pregnant and ran off to escape her abusive boyfriend. Either way, it is very strange that she would just disappear without even telling her family. Maura's family is still searching for answers. Earlier this year, they launched a new website in her honor, MauraMurrayMissing.org. Number 5. The Havana Embassy Mystery. In late 2016, CIA agents posing as American diplomats in Havana, Cuba, experienced an array of bizarre symptoms, including loud, mechanical sounds akin to chirping crickets. The individuals were ultimately treated for hearing loss, nausea, headaches, and other concussion-like symptoms. FBI agents found no evidence of what happened. Meanwhile, theories of a long-range acoustic weapon prevailed. The so-called official conclusion was that those claiming to experience symptoms suffered from a condition called mass sociogenic illness, which is another term for mass hysteria. Cuban officials and the U.S. State Department squabbled back and forth about whether the bizarre condition was indeed a psychological condition or something else. One study posited that the patients exhibited symptoms of having suffered from military-induced or car accident-related effects. It's like a concussion without a concussion, wrote co-author Randall Swanson. Since there was never any proof of any type of sound weapon or anything like that, the incident was used as an excuse to scale back on former President Barack Obama's moves to lessen tensions and open up diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Cuba. But no agency has conclusively determined who or what was behind the strange incident, leaving the rest of the country and the world to wonder what caused at least 22 individuals to be diagnosed with the bizarre symptoms. What happened to the American diplomats in Cuba? Nobody knows. Number 4. Sleeping sickness epidemic. Starting in the winter of 1916 to 1917, a strange neurological sickness called encephalitis lethargica began spreading across Europe and eventually elsewhere. It's estimated that over 1 million people were afflicted with the condition during this unexplainable period, which lasted into the 1930s. It's believed that the sleeping sickness started in Romania and spread throughout the continent, moving especially efficiently via traveling soldiers during World War I. In 1917, after hitting Vienna, it became an epidemic, and it accompanied the Spanish flu in 1918. One theory holds that a rare strain of Streptococcus bacteria causes sleeping sickness by attacking the brain, but experts remain at a loss for an explanation for why people suffer from the disease and its strange symptoms, which include being essentially frozen in a state of lethargy, along with fever, headache, and double vision. Other side effects include abnormal eye movements, upper body weakness, muscular pain, tremors, hallucinations, and in acute cases, patients sometimes even enter a coma.
I'm on the road to riches driving by ya. Why these niggas want pop my tires? Blue wings got fire. My name on flyers.